The first film we made this term was titled All the Time in the World and focused on visual storytelling and world building. We had around 5 weeks to complete this film, which was much longer than we'd had for any brief. However, as director, I still wanted to try and develop the story and plan filming dates and locations and book actors in advance, as I knew that if we were too relaxed to the deadline, the time would pass by very fast. We decided we wanted to make a film about boredom, seeing as this is the moment we all agreed you felt as though you had all the time in the world, because time passed by so slowly. Our story took inspiration from Plato's Allegory of the Cave, where Bernard, our main character, was bored at the care home whilst he was annoyed at Jane, his daughter, for leaving him there, but after starting to feel happy whilst painting, he realises there is no need to feel angry anymore. Plato says he wrote the book to show the effect of education and the lack of it on our nature. This is exactly what we tried to show in our film when Bernard discovers painting. As well as this, I felt that our story fit nicely with the overcoming the monster plot that Christopher Booker mentions in his book The 7 Basic Plots. I felt that the monster that Bernard was overcoming was his boredom. There was frustration at being left in the care home, a nightmare stage, as Booker describes, where he could not find anything interesting to do, and an escape from death, which was really an escape from boredom due to painting. When developing our story, we took inspiration from other overcoming monster stories, such as Jack and the Beanstalk. Although the stories themselves bore little resemblance, the plot was still similar. Instead of Jack's mum throwing away the magic beans, it was Bernard's daughter taking him away from his home and putting him in care. Instead of Jack being intrigued and climbing the beanstalk, it was Bernard exploring the box of items that his daughter had brought for him. And instead of Jack cutting down the beanstalk to fight away the giants, it was Bernard painting to fight away his boredom. As the project was heavily focused on world building, we decided to challenge ourselves by setting the whole story in one room. As the dialogue could only be 6 lines long across the whole script, we also could not waste lines trying to explain that we were setting the story up in a care home, meaning we just had to show this through visual imagery, such as using a nurse. When choosing actors, I knew that the most challenging one would be finding an older actor to play Bernard. I found an actor through asking other actors I'd met in previous films. One of the other actresses I had also met whilst being a DP on a master's film shoot. I found a man who said that we could use a room in one of his care homes. However, once we got to the location on the day of the shoot, we found out that the manager on duty at the time had no idea we were coming. Despite this, they were really nice and allowed us to use a room anyway. They even made lunch for us. On the day of the shoot as director, my main priorities were making sure we kept on schedule so as not to overrun, as we only had one day to film. As well as this, we were planning to use only natural light because the lights we had hired out looked too warm for our film's sad circumstances, which meant we had even less time to fit everything in. Unfortunately, one of our actors arrived an hour late. However, I managed to keep on track and we only finished 20 minutes late despite this. Perhaps to fix any confusion there may have been with starting times, I'll make a call sheet for the next film in order to make sure everyone has all the information in writing and have no excuses for being late. As I had come up with the initial idea for the story, I felt as though I had the best understanding of it, and another of my jobs as director was to convey the ideas to my group so that we were all on the same page. I chose to use long takes as the story was a calm, sad story with an uplifting end, rather than a dramatic one which would use quick cuts. As well as this, I chose to use a macro lens for some of the more intense scenes, such as where Bernard is painting. I felt this added to the delivery of the story and how the audience would react to the situations in it, making them feel closer to Bernard. As well as this, I worked closely with the editor in order to get the final stages of the film production process to look as I had envisioned. We also chose to add a ticking clock in some scenes of the film, such as where Bernard is watching TV and where he is looking through the box of items Jane, his daughter, has brought for him. This was heavily inspired by the film Dunkirk, where a ticking clock can be heard in some parts. We chose to slow down the ticking so that it was longer than a second between each one to symbolise the slow passing of time. With regards to the lighting, a lot of our footage turned out very dark due to our reliance on natural light and our reluctance to use warm lighting. Perhaps next time we could hire out some gels in order to make the lighting look more blue and be able to illuminate the scene better. With regards to culture, this film was probably more suited to cultures that are less focused on community. For example, in Japanese or Chinese culture, daughters or sons are more likely to look after their elderly parents, rather than putting them into care, meaning that these cultures would probably not be able to relate to this film. In order for them to be able to sympathise with the character, I think the plot would have to be reworked, which I could potentially experiment with in the future. I feel that after this film project, I have a greater understanding of the basic plots of film that we learnt about, and was able to implement them into my work, understanding them on a practical rather than just a theoretical level. If I could make this film again, I would use Bernard's boredom as the monster in the story and portray better how sad it made him feel. As well as this, I'd like to pay closer attention to the traditional 3-act story structure in order to make our story perhaps more appealing to the audience. For example, the lead up to our payoff at the end could have been longer in order for it to be more satisfying to viewers. For our second film, we were given a broader brief. We were not even given a title. Myself and my group decided to focus more on the storytelling aspect of the project, seeing as our tutors had said we did not have a clear story arc previously. We started by brainstorming relevant modern issues. We chose Brexit in the end, as we thought this would be a good approach, as many people would be interested in current affairs. We decided to make the film a mockumentary, as we felt this would be a good combination of political issues and humour. As our film had to be under 5 minutes long, it was a challenge to create a natural feel to the mockumentary, but also have a clear story within it. We watched several documentaries such as Black Sheep to draw inspiration from, but in the end our framing and shot choices were mostly our own, as we felt the lighting in Black Sheep was too harsh and the shots too intense for our light-hearted mockumentary. As well as this, we were inspired by a type of storytelling from ancient Greece called konto, where stories are told relying heavily on improvisation and telling tales of daily Sicilian life, as mentioned in Amy S. Troy's article How Stories Are Told Around the World for TED. I felt this applied to our mockumentary as we asked our actors to improvise from the script to make it more natural. We decided on 2 characters, pretty typical people that had views on Brexit which many of us in the group had come across. One was uneducated and the second was racist. A third character came later when we felt that it would be funny and ironic to include someone from Sweden who knew more about Brexit than our 2 characters from England. From here we started planning the structure of our film. We would start it off as interviews with the characters, in order for the audience to be thrown straight into the plot, understanding as soon as they heard the first question in the interview that the film was about Brexit. As well as this, for the audience to understand that the 3 boys were all friends, we decided to link the interviews by having each person mention the next in some way.
I'm gonna become a skater soon as well, just like my dude Sam.
This would all count as a setup to the film using the 3-act structure. We felt that the structure of our story fell under Kurt Vonnegut's Man in Hole, with Sam being upset about the closing of the kebab shop, but ending up better off as he realises he also enjoys fish and chips. As Joseph Campbell mentions in his book, The Hero with 1,000 Faces, when a character is swallowed into the unknown, they are in the belly of the whale, as Sam was when the kebab shop closed. We took inspiration for our main character from a scene in Love Island, where some of the girls are discussing Brexit, but they don't know much about it. One of them thinks we will have no trees and it will be more difficult to go on holiday. To create an obstacle, we decided to follow Sam, the uneducated main character, to meet with his friends Mans and Dan as they head for lunch to a kebab shop. They get there only to find that it has been closed down by its Greek owners, who have had to return to Greece due to Brexit. This, especially for Sam, is the dark night of the soul, as he is distraught over his favourite kebab shop closing. This phrase was first used in St. John's of the Cross's poem, Noche Oscura. Finally, the last scenes are clips that become stills with text. We took inspiration from films such as City of God and The Other Woman for this idea. As can be seen, the clips from City of God introduced characters and parts of the story. The text in our film told the audience that there had been a resolution for all 3 characters, where they had overcome all their struggles and managed to achieve what they had wanted, the wrap-up to the film. Similar stills can be seen at the end of The Other Woman. As it was a mockumentary, we decided to film our film handheld, with the shaky shots and zooms adding to the style of the film. This was inspired by a scene from the film Julian Donkey Boy, which makes us, the audience, feel as though we are amongst the characters and taking part in their conversations, which is what we tried to do with our film. We learned that the reason for the zooms in documentaries is for changing to framing. We didn't know this at the time of filming, and so a lot of our zooms seemed random and pointless, but it is a lesson well learned. Before the day of the shoot, I worked with the scriptwriter to make sure our script did not include any unnecessary scenes, which is what we felt happened with the first film this term. On the days of the shoot, I had to communicate clearly to the cast and crew what we wanted, and as we had 7 locations to film in, myself and the producer had to make sure we were getting to each location on time and managing to capture all the shots we wanted. After the shoot, in post-production, I helped our editor by marking the best takes of each scene, as well as helping her with artistic and technical editing choices. We were happy with how everything had gone, especially that we had managed to stick to schedule and our sound had not been ruined despite the strong winds on the day we were filming outside. When we were shooting, we had a few people ask us about what we were filming, and when they found out it was about Brexit, they wanted to give their own opinions on it. One of these people was a skater who admitted he did not know much about Brexit.
What do I think will happen after Brexit? We're gonna fuck up in it.
This was ironic, as he was essentially in the same position as our main character. Our film was aimed at Gen Z and East London culture. This was due to us basing the film in Peckham around some aspiring skaters. I felt that the humour and slang we used was also most suited to this group of people. I thought this worked well for our film in particular, but to include other cultures or even other parts of the UK, we would need to tweak parts of the film, perhaps changing the issue our main character faced and the reactions to it in order for more people to relate. We perhaps spent too long on the setup and the resolution, not building up enough suspense and issues to make the payoff worth it. If I could make this film again, I would love to make a longer version, perhaps 10 minutes long, where we could explore the dark night of the soul further, maybe with more severe consequences for the characters when the kebab shop closes in the middle of the film. As well as this, I would also love to develop the other 2 characters more in the film, to make the audience feel as though they had a connection with them. Overall, I am much happier with how my second film came out compared to the first, and I feel as though I was able to develop my storytelling skills and implement them into my films throughout this term.